Memorial services for the late civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson will begin later this morning at the Rainbow Push headquarters in Chicago. Just the first in a series of cross-country services honoring the life and legacy of the iconic figure. The body of Reverend Jackson will travel to Washington and to his native South Carolina for memorials before returning back to Chicago next week for final burial. Joining us now, Reverend Jackson's son, Democratic Congressman Jonathan Jackson of Illinois. Congressman, good morning. It's so great to have you with us. We're so sorry for the loss of your father. I think all of us know and have thought a lot about since his passing, his legacy in this country as a civil rights leader, but also as a trailblazing presidential candidate a couple of times. But I'm curious from you about the man, the that you knew that most of us didn't get to see.
I would tell you, and thank you so much for your prayers. My father's had a long-time relationship with the media, and so he understood the business and the work that you do, had enormous amount of respect for you. And I would tell you that, Dad, he was courage, as one person described, wrapped in compassion. He was a very compassionate person. And what people don't see is behind the scenes, even after there were debates, that he was very gracious, shaking hands, loving his adversaries. He was a minister at heart, first and foremost. He didn't always argue the legal technicalities. He argued from the moral perspective. He tried to course correct the nation from a moral perspective. And so he was true to that. And as a father, I lost a father, a friend. I lost a political leader and a minister that I truly admire and respect. And so he preached of a personal salvation and of a social salvation. And so those two, I think, is very unique to his ministry. So I've got enormous respect. I've got a hole in my heart, but I thank God for 60 great years. I thank my mother for 64 years of their great marriage. And through it all, it's been an American story. And so the overwhelming amount of outpouring of love and respect that people have shown him, I'm grateful, and our family is thankful.
Representative, I was disappointed that the Speaker of the House declined to any effort to recognize your father at the Capitol. Clearly, he was a national leader. Clearly, I'll never forget the night I was in Chicago during the primaries in 2008, and I was in that room full of people as Super Tuesday results came in, and I happened to be standing near your father as those results were coming in. And I looked over and I could see the tears coming down on his face. And it was such a poignant moment that he was witnessing something that I know meant a lot to him, the election of Barack Obama. But also, I think everyone needs to understand that he was the trailblazer in presidential politics for Black leadership in this country. Speak to what you think happened, and I hope your family is taking it as they should, as an unfortunate political decision rather than a lack of respect for who your father was.
Yeah, I would focus on Governor McMaster of South Carolina. He's honoring my father with the opportunity to lie in state. My father's a son of South Carolina, grew up in the Jim Crow, South Carolina, where he couldn't walk on the lawns where it said no Negroes, no Blacks, and no Jews and no dogs could walk in that lawn. And then he was able to run for president and be on the same stage with the former governor, and now to see Governor McMaster bring the New South forward. So what was the loss in Washington, D.C. was certainly a homecoming and a gracious overture for a gain in South Carolina. The governor of Tennessee is lowering the flag as my father's remains pass through the state of Tennessee when we drive from Chicago through the states en route to South Carolina. Really in tribute to the monks. My father always was up for a good protest, a good march, and we respect those freedom fighters, those marchers that went from Texas all the way up to New York. So giving peace a chance. There's a very toxic climate in Washington, D.C., the same Washington, D.C. that would lower the flag for Charlie Kirk, that says the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a mistake. How can you say getting rid of biases in race and sex and religion was a mistake? How can you say it was a mistake to fully enfranchise people to be Americans. That was a pivotal piece of legislation. But that's the same speaker, and that's what we're dealing with. They have a high tolerance for things that are very indecent and a very low regard for people that have been great Americans. And so I've had a conversation with the speaker. I've shared my personal remarks. I've been in a very unenviable position. I'm not advocating for my father. I'm advocating for a man that meant so much to the country. Also, I would like to say a special thank you to my friend, Congressman Joe Wilson. He took the personal initiative, Congressman Joe Wilson of South Carolina. He lowered the flag outside of his congressional office. He shared that with me yesterday. Governor Whitmer of Michigan has lowered the flag in the state of Michigan. So people have done great things that appreciate the work, understand it, and are very decent and very compassionate people. So I'm seeing more of that, and that we're grateful.
Congressman, once more, you certainly have our condolences. I want to turn also to perhaps the top story of the day in the news. You sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee. We've been talking all morning about the situation with Iran. American team meeting with Iranian representatives in Geneva today. They've had one session. There might be another later. Unclear what progress, if any, has been made. The administration has really made very little case for conflict in Iran. Share with us some of your concerns.
Well, he's made no case for it. And America first, you have to ask the second question. What he's doing is America alone. It's a very isolated position. We've got trade. We've got restrictions on 75 countries of people having access to visas to the United States. We're becoming more isolated, which makes us more vulnerable. That's not in our strategic interest. America is really in awe of what's happening in America. Some people have asked me in foreign relations, like, how can one person have so much power and do such disastrous things to the nation? We've got people coming in, for example, to visit the funeral from South Africa, from Colombia, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and they have visa restrictions. They're having difficulty bringing a delegation to a funeral to eulogize someone because of this current chaos that's been created in the State Department. In Iran, pulling up gunboats is putting fears and tremors all throughout the foreign court. People don't know what America is doing now. The world is moving towards electrification, and we're going back towards gas. The world's become more integrated. We've become more isolated. That was not a State of the Union speech. That was a political messaging carefully curated, and it didn't give an overarching sense of a report on where we are as a nation, where we've come from, where we're going, what are the trade-offs, what are the considerations. I mean, it was just, felt like I was in a locker room. And what he did with the women's hockey and versus the men was just absolutely another thing of disgust. Like, he just can't see. He's not a compassionate person. I'm praying for him. I hope he gets better. And God knows that we certainly need that.
Democratic Congressman Jonathan Jackson of Illinois, we hope you feel the prayers and gratitude of the country and the world as you celebrate the life of your father over the next week or so. Thanks for being with us this morning, sir.
Thank you.